Hello and welcome to another web edition of Cuse Countdown, previewing Syracuse's Jimmy V Classic bout with UConn alongside Jake Marsh and Nicole Weaving. I'm Jackson Ajello. The Orange coming off the squad's first tilt with a ranked opponent in second-ranked Kansas. And guys, the patented 2-3 zone for Syracuse, they held Kansas under the Kansas's season average in points per game, but they did allow 11 threes. So Nicole, how do you see this SU defense playing out over the course of the season?
I really do think they did a good job handling this team, but it really came down to either two things. Either the wingers were too wide trying to cover those threes and it gave the guards room to drive to the net, or the front court was creeping up too much and then it gave Vic and Graham gave them space to be able to get those alley-oops.
Look, you can only do so much when Devontae Graham and LeGerald Vic are on the other team, so Syracuse did contain them a little bit, but certainly not enough. They lost by 16.
Definitely a lot of firepower on that Jayhawk squad and a lot of development left for this SU zone. But following the game, Coach Boeheim shot down any talk of man defense.
You know, we believe we can stop people from the three-point line if we play our defense properly. It's interesting that Kansas was shooting 47% against 6 teams that played man-to-man. But yet everybody says, well, you can't play zone. Well, obviously you can't play man-to-man either. People don't ever get that quite.
As you look at how the teams stack up stats-wise, it's pretty comparable across the board with a couple of key exceptions. One of those happens to be defense. The Orange boasts a top 25 defense in the country, allowing just 62 points per game. Meanwhile, the Huskies, they allow over 10 more points per game than Syracuse does. But another interesting stat you don't see here, assists. Both teams happen to be towards the bottom of their own respective conferences in assists. But UConn is 347th out of 351 Division I teams in assists per game. The team has under 10 assists per game and is last in the AAC on the season. Well, the Huskies may be towards the bottom of the conference in assists per game, but Jalen Adams has over a third of those assists on this team. Jake, how important is he going forward, especially with Alteri Gilbert likely out for the Huskies?
Something that stands out to me, Jackson, is that UConn's roster and Syracuse's roster, they're very similar. You both have the guards who are expected to have a lot of scoring in each game. For UConn, it's Jalen Adams, and for Syracuse, you have Tyus Battle. They have to do a lot. So Jalen Adams, first team All-American Athletic Conference for a reason, and he's shown that with the Huskies.
Yeah, he's averaging 19.4 points per game. That's second in the AAC, but really he's been stepping up as he leads the team in steals as well, and he's really that rock for this UConn team, in the fact that he's just been able to get over 20 points in their losses, and he's just the guy that the younger players go to.
Adams certainly expected to play a role in this game, but Jake, what is your key to the game?
Jackson, do you have any shampoo on you? Because my key to the game is Syracuse has to stay clean. And for that, I mean in the foul trouble. Look, Barama Sidibe and Pascal Chukwu, they had 11 and 12 fouls respectively against Kansas. And with your two big guys in foul trouble, you really can't get many rebounds. So Syracuse needs to stay clean.
And you mentioned rebounds right there, and that's going to be my key to the game, is going to be win the rebound battle. It's going to come down to the O'Shea Brissett versus Terry Larriere, and really Syracuse is averaging about 5 more rebounds a game and getting boards. This was their struggle last year, was they were unable to get those rebounds, and they've been able to improve upon that this season, and that's going to be crucial because both of these teams are not the strongest in shooting, so Syracuse is going to need those second chances. Okay,
so we know it will play a role in deciding the game, but Nicole, when it comes down to it, who wins the game?
For this one, I have Syracuse winning 61-57. As I mentioned, neither of these teams are the strongest in shooting, so don't expect a high-scoring game. But I think that it's going to come down to the fact that Syracuse has both Tyus and Frank. They've also are stronger on the defensive end in both blocks and steals and rebounds, as I mentioned. So I think that all around, as long as they can execute, Syracuse can win this one.
This certainly isn't the first rodeo between Syracuse and UConn, but give me 68-64 Syracuse. And look, you can dive into the stats as much as you want, but when it's all said and done, there's a rivalry game. You know what that means. Throw everything away. And Syracuse will escape in the Garden, the home away from home.
In the end, both our analysts with a close game here, but Syracuse pulling it out. That'll do it for this web edition of Cuse Countdown. For more coverage of all your sports on the Hill, be sure to check us out at CitrusTV.com or hit us up at CitrusTV Sports on Twitter. Alongside Jake Marsh and Nicole Weaving, I'm Jackson Ajello. Now all that's left to do is tip off.